So I'm actually, of course, we try to do these lives, and there's always a little bit of technical difficulties, and so I'm just trying to make sure this thing is doing what it's supposed to do. So you have to bear with me a little bit. I hope everybody's doing well. While we're waiting here, just want to make an announcement that yesterday I had the very good fortune of going to Virginia and watching one of our own. My uncle Alexander, who is a W-5 warrant officer, a fifth level warrant officer, was able to receive. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame for the quartermasters, for the Army quartermasters. So the Army quartermasters are what we call, they do logistics. So they make sure that everybody's got the food and stuff of this nature. As a matter of fact, we just had that movie where the sisters help get the mail through. So that's part of the quartermasters. So he was inducted into the Hall of Fame for that organization, and he is right there from Boardman, North Carolina. So I just want to make sure that we
So I'm
acknowledge
actually,
that.
of course, we try to do these lives,
And that there's always a little bit of technical difficulties, and so I'm just trying to make sure this thing is there. We go. Cool. So yeah. So just want to make sure that everybody know that for one of our own has been inducted into the Hall of Fame for the United States Army. So I think we need to make sure that we know that, and that we know that good things. Of course, we know that good things come from Boardman, but hey, it's always nice to see one of our own to get through with that. Okay. All right. So let's see. So the days. So for the day. So today, what we're going to be talking about is what we call diseases of despair. Okay. So one of the things that goes on, like I said, one of the things that affects African American men is like I said, things like suicide, drug overdoses. These things are known as diseases of despair. So a lot of times, of course, we talk about high blood pressure, we talk about kidney disease, we talk about heart disease, but what we tend to ignore these kind of issues that kind of affect different things. So part of it's psychological, part of it's mental, part of it's really kind of spiritual, really, if you think about it. And there's a term they call it the diseases of despair. And this is one of the things that seems to be affecting African Americans, especially African American men now. And it's to the point that suicide is a leading cause of death for Black men under the age of 45. Remember, for a while it was homicide, right? But like this is now the third or fourth cause of death for Black men under 45 is what we call diseases of despair. So what are diseases of despair? So long-term stress, trauma, poverty, racism, loneliness, untreated mental health issues, conditions that lead to people trying to take things into their own hands. So, that it leads to people, taking drugs, drinking a lot. It leads to people being depressed. And actually, it can even lead to things like violence. Like I said, if you got long-term stress, you got a shorter fuse. Like I said, you got a shorter fuse. So these are some things that are manifestations or causes or contributors to disease of despair. And so we wanted to talk about this a little bit today because this is extraordinarily important, even as we talk about all these physical conditions and physical conditions. We need to talk about disease of despair. And so we have a definition for it, or kind of a definition for it, and we also have the common ways it exemplifies itself. So, like I said, suicide is one of the ones, and the suicide rates in Black youth have doubled in the past 20 years. I said doubled in the past 20 years. So you think about that. I mean, so we are a group of people who survived. We survived slavery. We survived slavery. We survived, being, kind of oppressed. And now one of our biggest issues is that our young people can't, feel that they are so oppressed that they harm themselves. Before it was like it used to be, violence, get drive-bys and things of nature. Now we're doing this thing where, hey, we're the young people are killing themselves. So like I said, this is a disease of despair, drug overdoses. So, we don't talk about this a lot, but like I said, sometimes people, when they have depression, anxiety, one of the things they do is they go to drugs. And what's been happening also recently is that, drug overdoses have been rising very fast in the Black communities. And, the death rates have exceeded those of white Americans. And so that's something else that's going on there. And that comes, a lot of this stuff is coming from fentanyl, because fentanyl has found its way into a lot of other drugs. Hopefully, now that hopefully fentanyl is not coming, into the United States, hopefully those numbers are dropped down, but, we'll have to see how that goes. Then alcohol related diseases. So, heavy drinking. So a lot of people drink and they don't really see that as kind of a drug, but alcohol is a serious issue because it can lead to liver disease. It can lead to as excess drinking can also lead to high blood pressure. There are a lot of bad things that can come out of drinking alcohol. The other thing that is bad about alcohol is this, and that is that, well, I guess two things that go on, especially when it comes to disease of despair. So alcohol is a depression. It actually depresses you, right? I mean, we drink it to kind of get away from things, but it actually is a depressant, right? So you get depressed, you drink. Guess what it does? It makes you a little more depressed. And so that cycle can continue. And of course, everybody's different. Some people can handle a little bit better than others, but overall, like I said, that's really what it does. So you have that going on there. The other thing is this, of course, you drink, you make not very good decisions. So imagine that like I said, things are going on. Maybe you can't get a job or can't get a promotion. Maybe home life is not that great. You drink and you get a DUI. Everything that may have been affecting you just got worse. Okay. So, either that or maybe you get into an accident or something of nature. So all the things are worse. So, like I said, this is a way of treating a disease of despair, or this is a called disease of despair that also can make things a little bit worse. Of course, then you just have regular depression, untreated mental illness, this especially in African American men. So we experience this stuff. We're under a lot of pressure, and we have mental illnesses that go unchecked. And then, like I said, that mental illness then contributes to other conditions. So that's one of the things that happens as well. And then, of course, violent death. Like I said, we see the news. Okay, we see the news. Like I said, people, two people shot here, five people, a couple people shot here. Somebody shot up a club. I think that's just you really think about it for African American males. I think that's kind of part of our life that we almost don't even think about, right? Like say, hey, somebody shot at the club. Okay, all right, we just gonna run and we're gonna come back to the same club. So why are Black men more at risk? And why are diseases of despair rising in our community? It's kind of a couple of different. Some of it's personal choices. I mean, you just make bad choices, and you keep making bad choices. Like I said, it can put you in a place that 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 is hard to get out of. And if your mindset is not proper, then like I said, that just kind of feeds on itself. Okay. But you also got to remember that there's systems and there are other stressors that can be out of, control. Things that are being done to you. Of course, things can be done to you, but of course, your reaction may be different from one person to the next. So, job loss, unemployment, of course, like I said, we get under, we're kind of underemployed a lot more. Generational poverty. So, like I said, we come from several generations of poverty. Like I said, you may not have as much hope, or may be difficult to imagine yourself coming out of that. Lack of access to mental health care. And this is a big one because it really is tough to get into a mental health professional. There's just a shortage of them. Okay. And then, of course, a lot of African American men, they either want somebody Black or they want somebody Black and male. And those numbers are really, really small. So, like I said, that can be a little bit of issue. Mass incarceration. We've known this. Like I said, there's a school to prison pipeline. They build the prisons based off of third grade reading scores. And guess what those have done over the last couple of years? They dropped, and no one's kind of fixed it. So guess what? Like I said, look, so if that score is lower, then they building some more prisons, right? So that is an issue because, you know, I, you getting incarcerated leads to issues. If you're a father and you're incarcerated, now your family has issues. So those things can lead to thoughts of despair. Discrimination, of course, like I said, that's just part of, kind of the American experience, really. Discrimination, and like I said, depending on how you deal with that discrimination, can be kind of tough. And the cultural pressure to stay strong and not ask for help. And I think that's a big one. Like I said, we want to say, you don't want to ask for help. You don't want to capitulate. And so you don't seek out what you need to seek out. And you don't ask about how to deal with a lot of the issues that you face. And so all that stuff can kind of contribute, right? So a lot of Black men carry this stress. They carry it in silence. And like I said, they turn to alcohol, substances, or they just become, pretty, or they manage issues in a not helpful way, where they kind of in a way that becomes increasingly harmful to them. Okay. So how can you spot the warning signs for this? Okay. Disease of despair can creep in slowly. Some of the warning signs to look out for people. So one of the things is withdrawing from family and friends. So if it's somebody that usually come around, they usually bubbly or whatever, and all of a sudden they're kind of withdrawing, they're not really coming out. Like I said, that could be a sign. Changes of eating and sleeping. And it could be more eating or less eating, more sleeping or less sleeping. So it depends. Everybody deals with these sort of conditions separately. Like I said, it's not always the same thing. Saying things like it doesn't matter anymore, especially if it's a change. So like if they've always, like if they're like an Eeyore, they've always done it, it may not be quite as much, although I'd still pay attention to that anyway. But if it's someone that usually bubbling and they just they're going through a couple of things and they just, hey, you know what, man, I don't even care no more. I don't even care. Those sort of statements can be quite, it can signify a significant change, and that person may need a little more support, or maybe even needs professional help. Increased use of alcohol or drugs. People that are drunk in the, like so they, this person is getting high or drinking in the morning, and they used to just do it at parties. Like I said, that could be a warning sign as well. Loss of interest in things once enjoyed. Lack of loss of interest is actually something that you use to kind of, it's a screening for depression. So losing interest in things can be one as well. And then constant fatigue and feeling numb. So some people, when they get really depressed or really stressed, they can feel worn down. Okay, they just feel tired all the time. They just can't get their energy back. So that's another thing that can happen to people as well. And then of course, and then feeling numb. I can't feel nothing, man. I don't even feel nothing. So those are some things that can contribute as well. So, if you see someone that's like that, like I said, you want to encourage them to talk to their primary care doctor, or see if they can get a mental health professional. They may want to call a crisis line to see what's going on there. But, like I said, let them know that, you're willing to hear what's going on there. But of course, if it sounds like it's serious, you want to make sure that you get that person some help. Okay. So so the good news is these diseases can be prevented, they can be managed, but there's some things we got to do. Okay, got to talk about it, got to break the silence. Okay, conversations can save lives. So this is something that can easily, well, I won't say easily, but sometimes that conversation can can take that burden off that person, and just them having a conversation about it. The other thing is that depending on what it is, I mean, like I said, they might talk about it, and whatever they were, ruminating about or concerned about, they you may have a suggestion. Hey, look, I can't find a job, man. I always feel like I can't, can't get in. Oh, well, hey, look, there's I saw a restaurant hiring around the corner. What? Oh my God, let me go apply. And then they go find it. So like I said, talking kind of helps there. Checking in regularly with your doctor, not just when you feel sick. So, of course, most people will try to see the doc once a year, once every other year. Like I said, sometimes you might want to see them a little more frequently than that. Connect with community. So isolation fuels despair. Isolation fuels despair. So if you feel like you can't make it, things are not going well, the last thing you want to do is isolate yourself. It fuels despair. It fuels despair. So that person needs to not isolate themselves. They need to get out. They need to talk. They need to, interact with some other people so you can feel a little bit better about yourself. Or like I said, just get some encouragement. Okay. So faith groups, barbershop chats, fitness classes, men's ministry. These are all powerful sources of healing, getting your stuff off of your chest sometimes. Practice healthy habits, sleeping. Yeah, get your sleep. Like I said, get you a good meal, go to sleep, and sleep throughout the night. Cut all the stuff off, and cut your phone off, cut the lights out, cut the TV off, and get a good night's rest, and see how that feels. You want to eat healthy. A lot of these carbs can make you feel better initially, but then, like I said, you get the carb crash that goes on. Exercise helps you feel better as well, and then prayer. So you want to, like I said, prayer, meditation, those sort of things, all kind of help you build resilience. They also help reframe how you think. Okay, so you want to know, and then you want to know when to get help, therapy, support groups, medications if needed. So the therapy piece, to get your counselor that you can talk to. They can help you sort through what may be just a reactive issue, or maybe you just need to think about things a little bit different versus things that you may need to go to an actual psychiatrist to get some medication from. So you want to make sure you get that piece in there as well. So, and lastly, where to turn to for help. So 988 is a suicide and crisis lifeline. 988 is free and confidential 24/7. There's a National Alliance on Mental Illness. Local churches and clinic sometimes can offer some faith-based counseling. So I always want to ask for that as well. And so, like I said, you want to make sure that you're not, you just remember you're not alone, you're not weak, you're worth the care. Remember, one of the things I just did a podcast, and one of the things, especially for African American men, you need to understand that you are valuable. You need to understand your importance. When it comes to Christianity, you are quintessential for spirituality. We have a patriarchy for a reason. Like I said, look, that's who God created first. That's who God spoke to first. So remember that you are important. And no matter what's going on around you. Like I said, I know that there's a lot of misandry in the world, and especially within our communities. But like I said, you're not worthless. You're extraordinarily important. You were designed for a purpose and a reason. And sometimes finding that purpose can kind of help. But like I said, sometimes you need help finding that purpose. And so don't give up on yourself. Reach out, find some help, find a purpose, because we do need you. Okay. We do need you. I don't care what your baby mama said. So it's like, look, yo, we do need you. Your kids need you if you got kids. And if you don't got kids, you can have kids. Like I said, they will need you. Our communities need you. We need you. We need you in a better mindset. We need you in your best self. Okay. We need you in your best self. Okay. There's a reason why, there's been an attack on Black boys, over the last couple of decades. There's a reason why they did diminish the role of men inside of the families and inside of the church, because, if I want to go to war with another group of people, I need the men to get out of the way. There's a reason why Herod killed, all the boys. There's a reason why, Pharaoh, why he didn't say get rid of girls. He said get rid of the boys. Okay. There's a reason for that. And like I said, so we're facing that issue. And so it is very important that you understand this. It is very important that, like I said, when you look at that mirror in the morning, that you understand your worth. Okay. You got to understand your worth. And like I said, your purpose may not be clear, but your purpose is definitely not to take your own stuff out. Okay. We've been, you're the descendant of a group of people that made it across a ocean and the bottom of a boat. They picked rice, they picked cotton, they picked tobacco, they built, plantations, they survived, all kind of horrors. And you are the remnant of those people. And so you need to understand that you are represented, you represent them. So you want to be your best self. So like I said, look at yourself in the eye. Say you are important. And like I said, if it's necessary to go get help, go get help. And get out there, engage the world, and like I said, and let's keep pushing our brothers to do better. Push yourself to do better, but also push other brothers to do better. Okay. So, I think that, I'm gonna give you a little biblical, biblical note. So Corinthians 4, 8 through 9, it says, "We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, struck down, but not destroyed." I said struck down, but not destroyed. So make sure that you remember that you're not destroyed. You may be hard pressed on every side, but you're not crushed. You're not destroyed. So, guys, so let's get up. Let's make a better day today and tomorrow. Okay. Um, Outside of that, I'm Dr. Christopher Brown. I'm a doctor, not your doctor. So this has been for education and entertainment purposes. But if you have questions, always feel free to call the radio, shoot me a message on my social media, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay. So thank you for this time. WVOE, thank you for letting me be a host here, and we'll kind of go from there. Any questions? Okay. Okay. You got it. All right. All right. Well, sounds good. Thanks a lot, and we will chat with you later on.